Well, yeah, I mean, we're really looking forward to this chat today. I think it's amazing to talk to legacy brands and see what they're doing to inspire and invigorate messaging into their consumers and how they're resonating with them. So I think we'll lead you guys into lunch with some really good answers to questions and some really good tidbits of info. So I'm just going to go right into it. I think one of the things that we're all always thinking about is what are the key challenges being at a legacy brand and connecting with your consumers.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. Hi, everybody. My name's Ciara. You'll find out in a few minutes that I am Irish because the accent has not gone away. Been with Pepsi 9 years, Frito-Lay, so I have a few colleagues in the room. Julian, I was just saying, I think you worked for me for 2 weeks. I hope that wasn't, I think you've gone on to much better things. Derek is here as well, so lovely to be here. And I now look after two incredible legacy brands from a global marketing perspective. Lay's Chips, thank you for the mention, Julian, I appreciate that. And Quaker, as I call it, porridge, or oatmeal maybe around these parts. And there's quite a level of responsibility, Rob, when you have brands like that, because I am sort of only inheriting them for a short period of time. And there are incredible people, not just marketing people, but people from right across our organization who have invested time and energy and the smarts and the dedication to bring those brands to where they are today. I mean, Lay's is a $10 billion brand. I try not to think about that too much. The pressure might get a hold of me. I mean, it's probably bigger than the GDP of the country I'm from. So try not to get too pressurized. And Quaker is about $3 billion. So, they're doing something right. One of the things I would say in answer to your question that I take most seriously, though, is the history and why they are where they are today. And I think very often we can, particularly as marketers, we come in and we're new and we want to change the packaging or do new ads or whatever else we dream up. And we can often miss out the magic of what's gone before. So we have a wonderful CMO, a new lady, Jane Wakely. And I remember when I started on Lay, she said, Ciara, spend the time, go back to the archives, go back and look at everything we did and why there was magic there. And then think about that as we think about how we bring the brands forward. So for me, that's one of the key elements, I think, Rob, as you think about treating legacy brands with the respect as to what's gone before.
So piggybacking off of that, can you share some of the successful strategies that you've put into place to reach the modern consumer that buys these brands on a weekly basis?
Yeah, well, apparently my comms team said I'm not allowed to use some of the new ads yet, but they are coming. And if I take something like, if I take them like Quaker, for example, very well known all over the world, you'd be surprised how many markets it's in and how many people all over the world think it's from their market. And but what we've realized over the last few years is Larry, who's the name of the character, he does have a name, the guy on the pack, has become a little bit maybe outdated, a little bit old-fashioned. But God forbid you would take Larry away, that will not go down.
Did you guys know that his name was Larry?
Nobody, when I said it out loud, I'm thinking, surely everybody knows. Yeah. But no, he has a name. And so as we thought about how do we bring the brand into today, into the future, but at the same time, never stray from why people love us. We've done a lot of work, and our current positioning, which we're very excited about, we're about to launch the most beautiful, heartwarming ad you've ever seen. I'm telling you, there will be tears. It's launching for Christmas on the 16th of December in Canada. We love Canadians. And but it's all around the humble heroes who nourish the potential in all of us. And that can be a bowl of oatmeal on a big day that matters, or it can be the people around you who are there to support you on those days. And to us, that's a beautiful positioning that is very relevant to today. Gosh, when did we ever need humble heroes? Then we need them today and into the future. But is very, very built on where the brand has come from. Now, when you see the work, I hope you'll see it looks a lot more contemporary. It looks a lot more modern. It speaks, we're using very different types of media to look at it. We have massive personalization opportunity with the campaign idea. So all of the things that are available to us as marketers now, we will use to build them, to bring that new message to life. But the new message is very much built on the joy of what the brand has always been about. So hopefully I'm tempting you there with this.
No, it's December 16th.
December 16th.
So, I think there's been a few panels that have talked about this, and I think all of us have been to events over the past year and a half or so that have really been concentrating on this aspect of our industry. So what role does sustainability and social responsibility play in transforming these legacy brands to nowadays consumers?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm smiling because Derek and I would have had many conversations on this topic when we worked together. It's fascinating. Rob, when we were chatting before this event, I recall standing up on a stage in front of the Frito-Lay sales team about 5 years ago. And I was unfortunate. It was the morning after 2 days of sales conference, and you can imagine what happened at the nights. And I stood up and I talked about purpose and the role of purpose. And I could see sort of a bit of a glazing over going, oh yeah, Ciara's here to save the world. Yeah, sure, whatever. The change, I think, in how people in organisations like ours and where you work now, how they look at purpose or how they look at sustainability, for example, is seismic. I think, though, along the way, we've had a lot of shifts in terms of how you go after those areas, how you talk about those areas, how you credibly show up and talk about areas like sustainability, etc., is also up and down as well. So I want to say that it's a real evolving journey as to how we approach it. The thing that I said then, though, 5 years ago, and I believe even more strongly now, is that you absolutely have to have credibility. When you decide to talk about sustainability or potentially DE&I or relevant causes in the world today, you have to walk the talk. And you cannot suddenly wake up in the morning and go, yay, you know what, this is a really cool cause, I'm going to go out there and talk about it. And I can do it in a really creative way. It's not good enough, and you'll be seen through it. The joy about the brand, for example, Lay's, is we have incredible investment in PepsiCo in sustainable farming and in regenerative agriculture. And to be honest, regen agriculture is still a tiny blip in most consumers', consciousness. Do they care? But because we believe in it so much, and we believe in it in terms of the future of farming and the future of the planet, we're investing hugely in it. So as a brand like Lay's, we have an opportunity to talk about that. Now, how we talk about it is also it's challenging because, as I say, it's not the hot topic on everybody's minds. You think about something like Lay, do I really want to be lectured about regenerative farming? But there are many ways into that approach, and that's something we're looking at, at the moment, as to how we do that, how we bring it to life, and how we, as a massive brand, have the opportunity to showcase and tell people a story about something that we believe they should care about.
Yeah, I think that's great. You're right. You guys do have the platform, and you have the size.
Yeah.
And the consumers are looking at you guys as an authority on some of the things that you're doing. So hopefully we can make the farming part of it a bigger part of what the consumers can understand. Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the storytelling part and the brand awareness part, but what about the data side of things? What are you guys doing from a data standpoint to really help understand the consumers that you guys are trying to reach even better than you have in the past?
I mean, I think that in some ways, when I sat at the back there and listened to some of the conversations this morning, many of you are way ahead in terms of your agility and your entrepreneurialism and the companies you work for, the clients you deal with. I think as a large organisation like ours, we have the resources to go after it, but sometimes we're so big that it can be challenging. Or how do we take something and change our behaviours in order to show up with our brands in a meaningful way today? But I think one of the areas that I think is very interesting. So data, incredibly interesting. We have many ways of looking at how do we segment our consumers, how do we segment our messaging, but also how are we collecting data in a respectful and meaningful way? Because it's incumbent on us, I think, as marketers to make sure that when we are sharing messages with people, when we are meeting them across many different channels, that we are doing it in a way that respects the consumer and what they want to hear and make the message as personal as possible. So that's exciting for us. It's particularly exciting on legacy brands because, as I mentioned, on, say, a brand like Quaker or indeed like Lay's, we can take our campaign ideas but work out how do we personalise them. So if you're so-and-so and you live in this area and you have these interests, how do we make sure that our overall campaign idea, for example, on Lay's, joy is a very broad area. We've got an exciting new one coming. But how do we personalise that message so people think, gosh, Lay's gets me. It understands me and it is entertaining me and it's giving me a message that's meaningful. So I would say we're so good, sometimes we're so good in organisations like ours of building fabulous creative ideas and big brand campaigns. And sometimes we miss the opportunity then to actually use the data to personalise it and make it even more meaningful and connect even more. So that is a huge area of focus for us as we look at how we bring these legacy brands forward.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it too. It's the brand awareness and the big part of it, but also the personalization and finding the right balance between the two. So speaking of balance, what are some of the principles that you feel like can help guide brands, either the two that you're working on or even some other brands that are in the room, to appeal to the consumer today, but also make sure that you're keeping the core integrity of the brand and identity of the brand itself?
Yeah, I mean, the first one I would say, and I think it is important not just for brands, but also, as I think of many of you in the audience who are working for agencies, media agencies, creator agencies, etc., is know who you are, know what your DNA is, and be very clear about how you communicate that. Because there is a lot of noise in our world, so there's a lot of noise in our system, no matter what topic we're talking about nowadays. But being really clear on what you stand for. I used to work for Guinness. It was my first job out of college. How lucky was I? And I remember very early on, we worked on the brand essence. 3 words. Guinness still do it, 3 words. And the 3 words were goodness, power, and communion. We had the global VP of Guinness come and talk at a Lay's workshop recently as we are looking at our whole positioning. And the 3 words are exactly the same. And you see it on that brand, no matter where you see that brand. And those words will mean something different to you, Rob, than they do to me. But somehow the brand is managing to stick true to that and bring it to life. So I think whether you're a service provider, whether you're a brand, etc., sticking true to that DNA is incredibly important. I think the piece around being humble enough to understand how to evolve is really important as well. And when is the right time to evolve, and in what way are you evolving? And to my earlier point, being humble enough to know the evolution should be for the consumer, not because of you're the new marketer and you want to do the new campaign, or there's a new CEO and there's a new pressure. So I think understanding, built in your DNA, how do you evolve is really important. And then that final piece, I think, is there is magic in the world of data nowadays and the multi-channel opportunities we have to personalize what we do and to make people feel something powerful. And I think that is something that's very incumbent on us. And whether it is through sustainability or responsibility, or whether it's at the moment, for example, on Quaker, it's just about that emotional feeling that you give somebody that says, gosh, there's somebody in my life who cares enough about me. That's quite a lovely thing to do. Or with Lay's, whether it's putting a smile on someone's face because of the joy that we're bringing. And on that one, I have to give a little, I don't know if you've seen it's on the internet. We were in Milan a few weeks ago. We filmed a very interesting live stunt with David Beckham and Thierry Henry. And it's a beautiful example of just where we didn't take ourselves too seriously. We thought, you know what, we have the ability to entertain, we have the ability to bring joy through our soccer and our sports, let's do it. So I think those principles are hopefully useful.
Yeah, and I think that, so when you mentioned social responsibility and sustainability again, what are some of the things, you talked about some of the company goals, but what are some of the things that you're doing to portray that in the messaging that you're out there with as well?
Yeah, I mean, there is a brand that you will all, hopefully you will all know, and Derek knows it well, called Stacey's Pita Chips. And before I went to work in Frito-Lay, Derek and I were very involved in working with entrepreneurial companies and seeing how do we as a large organization support small entrepreneurs to grow their business. And we did a lot of mentoring and coaching. And the Stacey's brand was a great example of a company that we had bought from a female entrepreneur. And we were really dedicated. There is that whole thing when a big organization buys a small brand, how does it go down? We all know the stories where it didn't go down so well. But Stacey's, we like to think it did, and we stayed very close with the female founder. We have set up an amazing program called the Stacey's Rise Project, which is all about supporting female entrepreneurs. And the reason I tell you that story is because it shows how, by sticking close to our DNA, we could make a difference in the world and yet evolve the brand story. And there's a beautiful example I think we might be able to show where we partnered with Hello Sunshine, who obviously you all know who owns that company, and created a beautiful piece. The long form is 6 minutes. We're only going to show the 30 seconds to how we can support female founders.
All right.
There are days when I wonder if I should stop dreaming so big. They tell me I'm a risk. They say they can't take a chance. But I know that someone has done it before. I'm born from those who have done it before. When one woman rises, we all rise.
So if you have a minute, I encourage you to go on YouTube and watch the long form version. It's beautiful, and the 3 women that are featured were all part of our program, our mentorship program. So it's doing good things.
That's awesome. So the last question, and then we have one more spot we'll show, and then I'll turn it to some questions from the audience. But so how have you guys been evolving the storytelling to the mediums that people are consuming. We've talked about some of the things that you know the entire community is using: Snapchat, TikTok, obviously social media, but even still TV and audio, and the ways that people are consuming audio now, and the personalization. We talked about that a little bit, but how are you guys adapting to that to stay relevant to the consumers, and what are you doing, you know, to change the messaging to make sure that you're in the voice of the medium that you're using?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things I'd say. One is, I think sometimes large organizations, big brands, are slower to adapt and are slow to try new things, often because we have a huge amount of pressure in terms of ROI and improving our effectiveness, efficiency. And still today, there are many people who believe that your TV is the only way to go. So I think in that world, what we've tried to do is start to encourage our teams to be a little bit more creative and give them a little bit, take some of the pressure off and take some of the ties off. So we have things like, you know, you must spend 20% of your media budget trying out new things. And that's hopefully an unlocking of talent and creativity to go experiment, go try out. We're not going to measure it, you know, let's see what you come back with. And that has been incredible in terms of what the teams have come back with. The second piece, I think, is it's still very true that your core creative idea is your strongest point. And if you can get that right, like I alluded to earlier, then you can start to have real fun with how that idea comes to life in different mediums. So for example, on the Quaker medium, there are many channels we're looking at, including cinema, which I almost feel like is something that used to be there 15 years ago and then nobody's really thought about it, to go, where can you really bring the emotion of that message to life? But we're also looking at lots of other mediums where we go, how do you bring that message of humble heroes to life? So I think if you've got the strength of your creative idea, then you can have loads of fun with where it best comes to life and the mediums and how your creative best shows up. So I think we're trying to give the teams the reassurance to go experiment, to go test new things out. But also, for example, on the soccer piece, on the football piece, we've been able to go to channels and social and using some content creators we never would have done before. But because we've got our idea so clear, we're so clear about what it means on Lay's, that we can then go and have fun and experiment. So I would say the core fundamentals of getting into a great creative idea and really knowing that and sticking with it, then you can start to have a lot more fun, a lot more experimentation. And for then any of you in the room who are from the agency side and thinking, gosh, how do I get brands to try something different? How do I get them to try my service? Know who your brand is, know who your customer is, know what our DNA is, and bring solutions then, versus a, hey, you should try out my medium, versus a, I know what your DNA is, I see what you're doing, here's how it would show up on what I've got to offer. Changes the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I think it's great that you guys have put in such a high percentage towards test and learn and new initiatives, because
Absolutely.
you find that not too many people are putting that much credence into it, so that's great.
Good.
Yeah. Do we have the second spot that we can show? Yeah, we'll open it up.
In Mexico, more than 1.5 million children suffer malnourishment. It is caused by many factors. For them, everything is way more difficult. It's like life was a giant staircase. For malnourished children, everything is way more difficult, but together we can help. Quaker Plessy has created a specialized product made out of Quaker oat that adds nutrients to their daily diet to help them overcome malnourishment. We already started distributing the product, and together with the NGO Un Kilo de Ayuda, to provide nutritional workshop and to track the kids' progress, Quaker donates the product, And with your help, we can reach even more kids in Mexico.
Nice piece. Let me say one thing about that. That's a beautiful example of where we took something that we as a brand, as a food could do. We have this amazing oats. We have these amazing R&D partners who understand the power of the oat, but also the power of how to overcome malnutrition. And the team in Mexico did an incredible job in developing this cookie, which is developed especially with the nutrients needed to support children who are malnourished. And it's a beautiful example of bringing your credibility and being able to do it, but it also, you should see the impact that has on the team in Mexico and Latin America. That everyone who touches that program is so proud of what they can do, and we're now taking that program globally. So not every brand has the ability to do it, but I would encourage you. I feel at the moment that there is so much nervousness in the system about purpose and about making a difference and about using your brand, your cause to do it. I would say it is incumbent on us in the roles that we have, no matter who you work for, what you do, to be able to use that influence to make a difference. So I would encourage you not to be afraid or scared. Understand what you can genuinely do, and please do, because gosh, the world needs it more than ever.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I love it. So I think we have a couple of minutes for a few questions out in the audience.
How do you lean into global equities that you have for your brands versus specific equities that you have in different countries?
A very good questions. Sitting in a global role. So what we do find is that for legacy brands, or some of these brands like Lay's, Cheetos, Doritos, the connective tissue or that DNA is stronger and more similar than we may think. However, the joy is when you can really be clear about what you stand for globally, but then unleash that local magic. And that's what we've been finding is we've got stronger and clearer about our DNA. So Doritos is a great example for the bold. I mean, the way that we bring for the bold to life around the world can be quite different. But if you look at how it shows up, you still know it's Doritos. And that's what we're trying to do on Lay's with the focus of joy. That's what we're trying to do with Quaker and nourishing the potential of lives and our humble heroes. Because you could just see, if I say to you the idea of the humble heroes who nourish you, that could look so different all around the world. Look how it looked in Latin America versus how it might look in the US versus in the UK. But that connective gel is still really strong. And I think that's what we're getting better and better about as an organization, is understanding we are stronger together. We can build bigger things together. But when we then allow our local teams to take those ideas and bring them to life locally, that's when the magic happens.
Great. Well, thank you for opening the door to Quaker and Lay's and giving us a look into the vision. And also giving us all a new drinking game question, which we can all ask, what is the name of the guy on the Quaker ones?
Larry.
Larry.
Kira, Rob, thank you so much. Fantastic job.